Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Grace. My name, if you're new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video. And if you're a returning subscriber, too much marathon for you. Thank you so much. Currently we are on 171. I think every time I shoot a video, I will also be commenting on the number of subscribers that we're getting, because this is just so fabulous. It's just so beautiful and humbling, you know. So thank you so much for all people who have subscribed to the channel. And if you have not yet subscribed, because I have checked on the YouTube studio there that majority of the people who watch my videos are actually people that are not subscribed. So if you do subscribe, I will really appreciate that as we grow. Thank you so much, guys. As promised or as stipulated in the previous video, I would love for us to have Monday Bible studies, and on Friday we talk about psychology, because there's a lot of things that we need to talk about. And yeah, for this video we are starting with the psychology content of the year, I think. Yeah, I think so. But anyways, without any further rambling, because I like to talk too much, let's get into the video. So you guys can see by the title and thumbnail of the video, in today's video we'll be talking about 10 things that you should know about counseling. Now, counseling is one of those things that people don't necessarily take serious, I've noticed. I don't know, I just hope that it's just a matter of saying, but when the need arises, people will actually show up when necessary. So it's such an interesting topic to look at, given our societies and, you know, how we are brought up, our cultures, and what they suggest and everything like that. So in today's video, I hope that this video will be able to answer some of the questions you might have. I hope that this video might also be able to shed some light about what counseling is and what counseling is not. So I think that is the first point we will start it with. Before you can actually get to a point that you say, I want to go see a counselor, I want to go for a counseling session, you need to ask yourself, or you need to know what counseling is. All these 10 points that we'll discuss today will eventually give you a picture of what counseling is and what counseling is not. But it is important for you to basically have a definition or an explanation of what counseling is. And before I can continue, I'm remembering, because there are people passing, please don't mind any background noise that you might hear, because you know how it's like in these places. So with that being said, let's start with number one. What is counseling? So a lot of people, when they think about counseling, they think about getting advice, they think about someone solving their problems, they think about such things, right? However, today we are going to learn that counseling is not that. Counseling is way more than that. Counseling is way more than what people say it is, you know. So first point that you need to know is that counseling is not an event. It is not a single time thingy. It's not just a one-time thing and then everything is sorted, everything is back in place. However, it is a process. And what that means is that there are different stages of counseling. Obviously, if you're going to go to the first session, things are not going to be the same as with a follow-up session, right? So basically there's a process, and this process you can ask your counselor to take you through it if you want to, or if you want to know more about that. So it is a process. We go from one stage to the next, to the next, to the next, like that. So it's not a single event, right? Secondly, it is not giving advice. Counseling is not giving advice. A lot of people go to their counselors with an expectation that their counselor is going to tell them what to do, their counselor is going to solve all their problems, their counselor is going to give them solutions. So what counselors do basically is to help you understand your situation better. It is to help you understand things in a light that you might have not thought about, you know. So that is what counseling does. It provides guidance, but there's a difference between advising and guiding. There's really a huge difference there, right? So I like to think of counseling as a map. You see a map has different routes and places and all of that. So you are here and you want to get there. There's a destination that you want to get to. However, what a map does is to provide for you or help you see all the other possible routes that you can take. There is not necessarily one road that you can take, and that is definitely what it is with life. We might go through the same situation, but how we react to it is not going to be the same, and ultimately how we choose to deal with it or go about it as far as counseling is concerned might also not be the same as individuals on an individual level, right? So what counseling does is they give you guidance, not advice. Because what if I advise you, let's say for example I'm a counselor, and I advise you on what to do, and you come back and you say whatever I told you to do did not work. Yes, so it's just about guiding you and empowering you as an individual, right? That brings us to the third point, that anyone, in fact, let me just say normal people go for counseling, right? Anyone with a psychological disruption, if I should use that word for lack of a better word, or disturbance that could be through your everyday stressors or whatever it might be. Maybe you're struggling with adjusting. Anyone with any sort of dysfunction or impairment on their personal daily lives can go for counseling. What am I trying to say? There's a lot of stigma, there's a lot of if I should say myths surrounding the people who seek psychological help, and usually it's said to be for people who are crazy, and that's not the case. Anyone can go for counseling. Even if you're a pastor, even if you are a president, even if you're a teacher, even if you're whoever, you can still go for counseling. It's not for crazy people, as most people might say. So anyone, as long as you feel like you are not coping with whatever is going on in your life, or maybe, for example, you're a student, you need career guidance, you can still go for counseling and get what we call career counseling, right? That brings us to the next point, that counseling is done by a highly trained professional. There is a long process that a person has to undergo before they can actually offer counseling, and therefore your friend or whoever you are able to talk to does not necessarily replace your counselor. Even if I have a friend whom I can talk to and I feel safe with them, it's okay, but that does not mean that they replace the role of a counselor. There are counseling skills that they're not aware of. There are regulation, ethical guidelines that they do not adhere to, that they are not aware of. For example, we talk about confidentiality and trust are some of the core basic things that lay a foundation to a counseling relationship. So your friend cannot guarantee you confidentiality. However, a trained professional is able to guarantee you that confidentiality, because it is also one of the ethical guidelines that they need to adhere to. So that is what counseling does. It's done by a professional person who has been professionally trained for years. It's like saying you want to be a doctor, you have to be a student doctor for the duration of however many years, right, that it takes you to actually end up becoming a doctor. But during that duration, you are being trained to be that doctor, so that in one of those days when you are done with schooling, you are able to render the perfect services because you would have been trained in that regard. So as well, your counselors, your psychologists, they undergo so much training, so much training that for the benefit of you who might come as a client to them, right? So with that being said, it brings us to the next point that says that counseling is not being friends with your counselor. It is a professional space. It is a safe space, a professional space where your counselor helps you and empowers you to be a better person, to be better equipped and better knowledgeable about the situation that you're going through, so that you are better able to deal with it, if that makes sense. So that means that your counselor is not just going to be there as a friend, but rather as a professional who guides you in it. Therefore, because it's a professional relationship, there are also guidelines that guide that relationship, right? So it's not friendship with your counselor. You're not going there to be friends with the counselor, but what happens is that your counselor provides a safe space where you are able to talk and do all of those things, right? So you need to know that your counselor is your counselor. It is a professional, trained individual who is there to help you with your life situations or whatever you might be facing in that regard, right? So also, you need to know that counseling is not about the counselor. It's not about the counselor. Like I said, some people go to counseling with the mentality or with an expectation, my counselor is going to bombard me with all situations. I mean, not situations, solutions to my problems. However, one thing about counseling is it puts you in the center, especially if you will go to a counselor who practices the client-centered or person-centered rather approach. They put you in the center and they just aim to empower you, because we believe that everybody has the capacity and the uttermost capacity to solve their problems. They just need help. Because, for example, you might see things this way, but going for counseling, your counselor might also show you other perspectives that you might never have thought of or seen before. So that is what it is. It's not just about your counselor, it's mainly about you as a client. So like we said, it's about empowering you. So obviously you are going to do most of in some cases you'll find that you have to do most of the work than your counselor has to, because at the end of the day we are aiming to empower you, right? So that brings us to another point, that it's not about depending on your counselor. Like I said, they offer support, they offer guidance and all of that, but it should not be to a point that you have now become dependent on them to make decisions. You cannot make decisions by yourself. Now you need to go to your counselor and see if this decision will be perfect or not. No, they just empower you to go on with your lives, even because this counseling process also reads what also makes it a process is that one of the stages that it reaches is termination. So there will be a time where the counseling relationship has to come to an end. So if you are now dependent on the counselor, then you see that this one is going to be problematic, right? So it's more about that. It's not about building dependency on your counselor, but it's about the counselor helping you to be independent but a better equipped, independent person in that situation and other future situations that you might find yourself in, right? So yeah, like I said, just provide a professional space for you. So yeah, they just aim to empower you, right? Another point that you need to know is that counseling is not psychotherapy. This is a good follow-up point, following the fact that counseling is not there to solve your situations or your problems, right? But it's there to better help you and better equip you to be better individuals, if that makes sense, right? So counseling is not psychotherapy. Now I'm just going to touch briefly on these two to just highlight some of the differences that you need to know. With counseling, let's say somebody was involved in an accident, right, and they break, or their foot gets fractured. So with counseling, it's like that. It deals with, or it aims to help people who are fractured in a way. Like, it just helps to help them cope, help them develop coping strategies, this and this and that, adjust to the situations that they are in, and offer that support in that regard, right, for fractured people. However, if one of the other people that were involved in that accident got their leg broken, or maybe it tore apart, now their bone is exposed and everything, they need to go for more treatment rather than with just the minimum one, which in this case would be counseling. But if we are talking about deeply wounded people with things like childhood traumas, with things like such things that come from back then that's where psychotherapy comes into place. It's more for deeper psychological impairments in a way. So that is where we will deal with childhood traumas. We'll go back to your childhood, trying to understand how it has shaped you as who you are, such things. So they will look at past events and all of that. So when we talk about issues like personality, that is where psychotherapy actually is more effective. But with counseling, they just help you cope with your everyday lives, right? So that is why in most cases, a good example to give is with adjustment. So if you just want adjustment, help with adjusting, then counseling is the best option. But if ever it has something to do with traumas, maybe you were involved in some tragic event that once happened in your life, and now you keep thinking about that, you keep having flashbacks, you keep having nightmares, then it's deeper than just adjusting. So that is where psychotherapy comes into place. So some people might go to their counselors expecting such things like hypnosis, and stuff like that, but you need to know the difference between counseling and psychotherapy, right? And also, again, maybe on that, maybe I should just add that counseling can be offered by a psychologist, right? Even psychiatrists, I think, but mostly by psychologists and also registered counselors. In South Africa, I'm not sure about other countries, but in South Africa, we do have registered counselors, we do have psychologists. They're not the same, even their scope of practices are not the same. Then you put in a psychiatrist in that equation as well. Their job and their qualifications are not the same. Then you talk about a psychometrist as well. But all of these individuals, they all have their own scope of practice, although they are all working under mental health. So you need to know the differences between these professions if you're interested in going for counseling. Know who you can go to and how you can find that individual. Find a good counselor, who's going to provide good services to you. And you can do that through many ways, maybe word of mouth by someone, maybe you were referred to a counselor, or maybe you just found them yourself. You can go to the HPCSA website there and check for such people. You'll be able to find it there. But know that psychotherapy and counseling are two different things. A registered counselor cannot necessarily offer psychotherapy because it's so much deeper and kind of outside their scope of practice, right? So I don't know if that is clear, but I hope it is. Then that brings us to the other point that says that counseling is affordable as compared to other. But then remember that it goes on with the extent, the need for therapy, the need for counseling as well, right? But what I want to say is that going to a registered counselor generally is less expensive as compared to going to a psychologist, right? So it is affordable. One of the reasons that people claim they cannot go for counseling as far as social media is concerned is that it is kind of expensive. But really, it is not. I mean, if you are willing to spend so much money, you know how I think of psychology. Psychology is like being a doctor, but a doctor for the mind. You are dealing with something that is not physical, and that just makes it one of the most difficult things there is to do, because you are dealing with invisible wounds, things that people are very attached to and they're very careful with, because some things they don't want to be like recalling, they don't want to get triggered up because of those things, such things like that. So it makes it all the more difficult. However, what I want to say is that it's like being a doctor. A doctor addresses the wound. Every time you feel sick or you feel symptoms of a flu, you know that you want to get checked, you know that you want to get medication. So if we can spend money and effort trying to get that for our physical health, why can't we do the same for our mental health? Because at the end of the day, the main goal of counseling is to help you with your mental health. And interestingly, this topic of mental health is one of the most talked about topics in the world. Mental health this, mental health that, but it also comes with taking such measures as going for counseling. So here I'm just trying to make sure to make the facts counseling is more affordable than you might think to be heard. So, and most times you don't even have to pay for counseling. If you're a student especially, you don't necessarily have to pay for counseling. We have student counseling centers, like centers for counseling and development of students. In colleges, in universities, you can access such services for free. If you're in school and there's a school counselor, you can go for free. If there is a counselor in your hospital, in your clinics, you can go access these services for free. So it is accessible. So once you get access to such services, do not be hesitant to use them should there be a need to do that. And even when you are referred, the person who makes a referral knows what they're doing. So you need to also be sure to follow that up. Anyways, let us move on to the next point. When can you go for counseling, right? So like I said, anybody can go for counseling as long as they feel like they are not coping, they feel like they need help, they need someone to talk to as well. You can go for counseling. So when you feel like you are feeling lost, you don't know what to do, you don't know how to deal with whatever situation it might be, grief, unemployment, all these kind of things, as long as you feel like you are not doing well, that is an indication that your mind is trying to show you that you need to get help, just as you would need to get help if you were physically sick, right? So whenever you feel lost, whenever you feel like you're not coping well with your challenge, whenever you feel like you are feeling dysfunctional, whatever stress you might have has come to a point in it impairs your daily life, your daily living, that's when you can also reach out to go for counseling, right? And etc. and etc. And again, I'm gonna give you this point that because we did say that it's about empowering you, do not be surprised if you get to a session and eventually your counselor gives you homeworks, for example, things to do during the week or between your sessions. It is part of the process. It is part of empowering you. It is part of equipping you with the skills that you need to deal with that situation that you are faced with, right? And then lastly, you need to know that this one is similar to that one where counseling is offered by professionals, right? This point goes on to express the fact that counseling is based off of ethical standards. So basically it is ethical, and what that means is that every single registered counselor, every single psychologist, every single psychiatrist who will offer psychological or mental health services to you are individuals that have been registered with the HPCSA. And what that means is that the HPCSA knows that this person is practicing, this person is seeing such and such clients. Like by such and such, I mean the type of specialty that they deal with. For example, other people are career counselors, other people are trauma counselors. So having been registered with the HPCSA knows that there is this counselor where, or there's this psychologist where who's working under the specialty, right? And secondly, having been registered means that you need to follow the ethical rules that have been made by the HPCSA, right? So that brings us then to a sub point under that, there are real rules. I mean, there are rights and responsibilities as far as you as a client or a patient in some regards are concerned, right? So we just use the word client most of the time, but there are rights that you have as a client, but also there are responsibilities that you have as far as the counseling process is concerned, right? And you have a right to know what the goals of the counseling sessions are. You have the right to confidentiality. You have the right to informed consent. And what that means is that unless you give an informed consent to the counseling process, then the counseling process cannot happen because you are not consenting to that, right? It's like with a doctor, if ever you needed to get surgery, they wouldn't be able to operate on you unless there is an informed consent that was given. So such things are what supports the counseling process to make sure that you as a client are protected and you are guarded and you are safe, you see, as well as the counselor as well. So you also have a lot of responsibilities like adhering to whatever you guys are doing that you have consented to, doing your role or your part in that whole process of counseling, and so on and so forth. So you have rights and responsibilities that you need to know because it is based off of an ethical standard or ethical, I don't know what words to use, but yeah, ethical guideline anyway. So yeah, that is in essence what I wanted to share in today's video. But yeah, in essence, just know that counseling is more than what people think it is, and it goes way deeper than what people think it does, you see. So if ever you are considering going for counseling, or if ever you have gone for counseling before, and you are thinking about these things, but most especially if you want to consider going for counseling, these are some of the things that you need to know, so that you know what to expect, you know what not to expect, what is within the scope of practice of your counselor or your psychologist, and how far they can go with guiding you. Then it also helps you as an individual to be able to manage your expectations, because I've heard a lot of people say that they have gone for counseling, but counseling never helped them with anything. One of the questions that I would like to ask such people is, did you do your part as a client? Also, did you allow the counselor to do their part? Because you cannot go to a nurse and expect them to perform the duties of a doctor. So how do you manage such expectations? You know what the scope of practice that a nurse is. They might also take you through their own responsibilities as far as the counseling relationship is concerned, but you always need to know this kind of things. So I hope this video was able to provide some information relating to counseling. And if ever you guys have any questions, I'm going to attach my email in the description box. And by the way, I had put a different email in the previous videos to say anybody who wants to reach out to me can reach me in that email, but I noticed that email was not working for the longest time. So if you did send me an email and I probably did not respond, it is probably because of that. It had stopped working. And yeah, but I'm going to attach a different one for your convenience. I tried to deal with the previous email's problem, but I'm not sure if it's resolved right now. But yeah, I will attach my email. Please feel free to communicate, send an email, because I'm not on any other social media platform. So I would love to hear from you going forward. Yes, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.